So it's 2025 currently, and it's been 5 or so years since what you can call the start of the gacha boom. Yes, I know, gacha games have existed way before that, but what I mean is that it's been 5 years since the release of Genshin Impact, and I don't think anyone can argue that it really took gacha games to a whole nother level. Sorry, Honkai Impact 3rd. The gacha scene before Genshin Impact was drastically different. I remember my humble beginnings in Ghost Frontline 1, Azure Lane, Arknights, Princess Connect, and Dragalia Lost. Rest in peace. Each game hooked me in its own way. I enjoyed the hell out of each for a good number of months, maybe some more than others. Admittedly, spent a dime here and there for a costume or maybe even a unit. But when the world froze at one fateful year, Hoyo heard our cries, swooped down from the heavens and blessed us with a game which would power us through those tough times and out of the darkness, into the bright gacha future beyond. I don't know who's gonna even watch this or attempt to watch the whole thing, but there's gonna be a lot of yapping as I dump my thoughts on the last 5 years of my life in the gacha gaming space, namely Hoyo versus gacha space. Namely Hoyo versus gacha space. What I liked about it, what I disliked about it, and what I adore about it now and hope to see it stretch on into the future. So without further ado, let's start with topic number 1. Hoyoverse, formerly known as miHoyo, Tech Otaku saved the world, never forget that, swooped in and took the world by storm with their new open-world action role-playing game Genshin Impact, when the world was basically told to become introverts or you will die. I know they did have a successful title before this, Honkai Impact 3rd, as well as a few others, which I did hear a little about, but when Genshin came out, everyone and their pet dog was talking about it. Hey, you should play this. Hey, have you seen this? Hey, have you heard of Genshin? Genshin this, Genshin that? Alright, fuck it, I'll play it. So I downloaded Genshin. I really didn't know what to expect from the game going in. I just knew that the graphics and art looked really pretty. After a slow start, it enveloped me. The world looked super good, the story was easy to get behind, the characters were easily likable, and the combat experience was refreshing. I would sit on my PC for hours talking to every NPC, exploring all of the corners of the map, reading the story, because I'm crazy like that, and just simply enjoying the game for what it is. I would log in, do my dailies, even though they would get repetitive over time, grab my rewards from the guilds, progress a little with the story, and finish the session by goofing around the map. In between the main story, I would go out of my way to find world quests, especially around Mondstadt. Yes, Glory, I will find your partner and not tell you what happened to him. Yes, Timmy, I will help you feed your damn ducks. Yes, Joel, I will help you find your father who went into the mountains and hasn't come back. The writing, even for these small world quests, which 60% of the player base won't even bother to do, is remarkable. I really did want to find Joel's dad in Dragonspine. My heart was racing when I was running through the caves like a madman trying to find him. And when I finally found him at the end, my heart sank because when I saw his backpack, I just lost it. I felt bad for this bloody NPC, and it's an insignificant character in the grand scheme of things, and that feeling still bubbles up inside me as I say this. They did a good job making me feel for them. I laughed. I laughed when Venti blatantly revealed and proved his identity to Jean and Dilek, and was like, hey, it's me, you know, the god that you pray to. Yeah, I drink wine. I don't pay for my wine, and I pass out in front of your pub every single time. There was no shortage of things to do, and each patch was paced just right. I love Mondstadt. It's my favorite region by far till this day. I would still always log off and teleport to the waypoint above the church, because it just felt like home. The countless memories continued until the end of Inazuma. Sumeru was great, but it was also the time I started to feel burnt out from the game. It wasn't Sumeru's fault, don't get me wrong, but it also ties into what I dislike about the game as a whole. I don't know how it is now, but maybe I'm just unlucky because I do remember the drop rates for specific artifacts was ass. I wanted to build my Venti when I first got him, and I specifically wanted a Viridescent Vernier 4-piece for him. Countless nights I would spend farming that goddamn domain just to get something good for him, but I ended up drowning in Maiden Beloved, and that really left a sour taste in my mouth. Call it a skill issue, but it really pissed me off to the point that when I got my Zhao, I just said, fuck it, I'm not going back in there. I'm all for a good story, but by this point, some of them seemed to drag. Fans started calling out the game for literally being a visual novel with a gacha game attached to it, especially when some scenes were unskippable. I mean, this is justified to an extent. I mean, look at that R&R quest, which is like 10 hours. And I mean, not to knock on their VAs or anything, but if you have to hear Paimon speak for 10 hours plus, it will do things to you. The banners were a problem as well. There were so many reruns that didn't make sense and were poorly timed, so I wasn't itching to save or spend anymore as time went on. Oh yeah, and the rewards. I don't expect the world or anything, but come on, at least try harder. I can't quite explain it properly, but from the second part of Sumeru onwards, I can no longer seem to see the charm I once saw in Genshin when it first started. Maybe it's me, maybe it's the burnout, maybe it's because I've had my fill over the past 2 to 3 years and decided to move on to something fresh. The star just gradually faded. I hate to say it, but I can't really pinpoint it other than I just gradually lost interest. I still like the game, don't get me wrong, but the motivation's just no longer there. I might be back for when Snezhnaya drops maybe, but until then it's parked for the time being. I will always appreciate the memories I made in Genshin. The 2 golden archipelago runs will never be forgotten. It was a beautiful experience and I'm forever thankful they existed. The quests themselves were absolute cinema and me running around like my life depended on it the first time around because I really wanted to build my Kazuha and I was convinced that this was my only time to get those stupid materials that you could only find at the island at the time. Fishel's Quest, Midsummer Odyssey. That was the one people disliked because it had too much dialogue. It was beautiful. If you actually paid attention to it, it was like absolute cinema. And Albedo's Imposter Quest in Dragonspine, I think that was 2.7. That was the quest that made me like Albedo. These quests will forever live rent-free in my mind and they'll never be replicated. Ever. Thanks for the memories, Genshin. See you somewhere, someday amongst the stars. At this point, I really thought I was done with Hoyo, but no. Hoyo had other plans because it wasn't long till they swooped out of the heavens once more. Another gacha game, but this time with a different, more fresh approach. Honkai Star Rail dropped in 2023 and offered a fresh alternative to the burnt-out Genshin player base. At this point, it wasn't a surprise that most of the player base jumped ship to see what Star Rail would offer, and boy were they in for a treat. Turn-based auto battles. That is all. Sure, it took away all the glitz and glamour Genshin had in terms of combat flashiness and, you know, participation, but it offered an idle experience most players desired. Imagine you had a ton of homework or chores or work, but you really wanted to grind for relics. Well, now you can do both. Just like Genshin, I didn't know what to expect going into HSR. All I knew was that just the graphics and art looked insane. I'm starting to sense a pattern here. Honestly, I just needed something to fill the void of Genshin. Looking back now at the start of my HSR journey, it was a bit of a blur. But I do remember clearly that I wasn't mad that Dan Heng didn't give us mouth-to-mouth. I was just very disappointed. The story had me hooked from the get-go. You wake up on a space station with no memory of who you are, what your past is. You have a mom, you have an aunt who are shrouded in mystery and act as guides for your journey, and you're adopted by a bunch of people on a flying train that visits planets which are about to die and save them because you are the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Hoyo really knows how to hire great writers because I was really invested in the early story. Just like how Mondstadt was home to me, Harilo 6 also followed suit. The lonely, snow-covered planet with the lone civilization barely holding on to survival was a place I really wanted to help escape the dark predicament they were in. The people, the events, the playable characters, all of them came together beautifully to create a lovely, warm, and welcoming environment. Their preservation and determination to survive really shone through when you finally scratch and claw your way up to the top of Everwinter Hill and defeat that evil witch Kokolia. You can't help but feel joy. I was so happy for Bronya because she not only got to see her planet overcome the eternal freeze, for the most part, but mend fences with the underworld. After all, they're pretty much the last remaining people on that planet. They shouldn't be fighting. They should be working together to rebuild and thrive as a civilization for generations to come. Simulated universe also took me a while to adjust to. I just didn't get it at first. I remember initially disliking its format, but as time went on I started to enjoy it. I especially love playing Damage Over Time, or DOT. Inflicting stage 10 cancer on Yanqing using 2 dummy mummies and 2 absolute giga chads doing massive amounts of damage. Just kidding. Yanqing is a goat, and I will fight you if you disagree. The overall game mechanics were great, and like I said, DOT is the way to go because you just have to defend yourself while DOT eats away at the enemy's health over time. As well as the animations for the ults, they're top tier. Even on fast auto battle, I don't get sick of seeing these ults no matter how many times I see them because they are just that awesome. There isn't much, but if I had to nitpick for negatives, it would be the complexity of the latter part of the story. Now, I'm all for lore and lore dumps, but Penacony was the start of HSR really ramping up in terms of lore and backstories, but it seemed too wildly paced. I mean, Belobog and Luofu were pretty straightforward. Easy to follow, simple writing. Stellaron's bad, stop the Stellaron and everything's good. Once we got to Penacony and they introduced the Watchmaker, the Dreamscape, the Family, the Primordial Dreamscape, Adventurine, Galaga, the Charmony Festival, the Harmony, I can't. I just can't. Don't get me started on Amphorius. I haven't even touched it because that's already giving me the chills. Caught my attention span short or whatever, but I find it hard to keep track of what's going on sometimes. Star Rail is a game that I'm comfortable leaving for a little bit, knowing that I'll come back because the motivation is still there. Unlike Genshin, which is already reaching its apex, Star Rail is by all means still fairly recent in the grand scheme of things, and it still has a lot of things to offer. I'm still excited for where the Express will stop next. I'm still excited to discover more of Stell's origins. I'm still excited to see more of the recurring cast such as the Stellaron Hunters, Little Gui and Sushian back to Luofu, Sunday and his inevitable fate of either betraying the Express or eventually reuniting with his sister back in Penacony. Hopefully somewhere closer to the apex of the story if he decides to stick around and be a good guy for that long. The list goes on and on and on. I have a lot to thank Honkai Star Rail for, since most of the more successful videos I made on this channel are from it, but that is simply because it's just a lot of fun. Wuthering Waves and this next entry might have taken a little bit of my time away from it, but I'm 100% staying buckled up because I'm definitely in it for the long run. You ain't seen the last of me simming for a goat Yanqing. Anyway, speaking of the next entry, why do people think this is a Gooner game again? Oh wait, yeah. Zenless Zone Zero was a game that I was hyped about for a while actually, since they first released pre-registrations like, I don't know, like a year ago or something. The visuals and art looked amazing. Oh fucking hell, there really is a pattern. But this time they took it to 100. I mean, just look at how they market it.
It should have been me, not him!
Like striking visuals which clearly distincted it from the rest of the pack, and boy did they hit it out of the park. This is all I could ever want from a game. Enjoyable gameplay experience combined with well-written, well-paced action-packed storylines, balanced with slice-of-life side story quests, and that comic style, oh my god, mwah. It's taken everything I've loved from Genshin and turned it up to the max. I don't mind all the loot stuff. I'll admit they do know how to pull in an audience with their advertising, especially recently. But if you look past all that and enjoy the game for what it has to offer, it's by far the best experience I've ever had compared to the other two. There's no shortage of things to do, from Goldfinger Arcade to fishing to holo clearing. There's even bloody Fall Guys in the game, what the hell? You can even hang out with each playable character and develop bonds with them. The fact that you can get closer to these characters is so cool because it helps with immersion. Through hangouts and text messages, you can learn things about each character, their backstories, daily routines, likes, dislikes, relationships with other characters, and so forth. It's almost like you were there as the proxy and these are your actual friends. Each time you log on, you can see how people are doing, listen to their troubles, and they can come visit you and watch a movie together. Friendship simulator for the introverted. I love the fact that everyone's lives pretty much overlap in this game. Like, the story is written in a way where everyone knows each other one way or another. Factions will appear in other faction stories, characters will show up when you least expect it, and not just in a cameo role either. Like, they'll have a direct impact on how the story unfolds. It really pushes the narrative that New Eridu is pretty much the last remaining city in the world where Hollows have completely wiped out the rest of humanity. It legitimizes the saying of, wow, small world. Everyone's gotta know each other, whether they like it or not, because I mean, where the fuck else are you gonna go? I hated how they took away the HDD system from the main story. I feel like it brought a whole new gameplay style to the table and it just made sense. I mean, you are the proxy, the hero in the shadows, helping from afar. The HDD system accurately depicted how you as a third party would be helping out the agents from the Holo, strategizing your way through traps, ethereals, and other things to just get them to the end goal. It was such an immersive style of gameplay, only to be scrapped because a handful of snowflakes complained about it. Even though they did eventually pull through with a strong acceptable alternative. I mean, look at the way EOS runs, like it's hilarious. I was initially frustrated when they first announced it, but hey, at least they didn't completely remove it from the game. In terms of other faults or things I dislike about the game, I don't really have any. Maybe I'm just not that much of a hardcore gamer. Maybe I'm just too casual, or maybe I'm just the type to enjoy what's in front of me instead of nitpicking or blatantly hating on trivial things. Could they improve the battle mechanics? Yeah. Could they implement more endgame content? Yeah. Would I change a thing as of now? Absolutely not. As I said before, there's no shortage of things to do in the game, and I feel like they pace their content pretty well, so as to not feel like there's a huge gap in between patches. In case you couldn't tell, I'm pretty much still in my ZZZ phase right now. It's taken up most of my free time, and since it's still fairly new in the grand scheme of things, it will continue to do so for the foreseeable future. I just hope they stay as consistent with the great stuff they've been doing for it, for the sake of me not losing interest quickly. But as of this recording, the next patch is like Soldier 0 and Soldier 11, so I don't think I'm going anywhere anytime soon. 5 years isn't a really long time, but it feels like we've been through one hell of a journey since Genshin first dropped. Can you imagine how drastically different all our lives and wallets would be if Genshin never dropped? If Hoyoverse stuck as MiHoYo and solely focused on Honkai Impact 3, would we still have the same ripple effect both in and out of MiHoYo? For games such as Wuthering Waves, Girls Frontline 2, Nikkei, Blue Archive, would those ever come to fruition? Probably, but it's hard to say. As Hoyoverse continues to evolve, it's only natural that their content does too. In my opinion, after everything I've played through, it feels like they finally hit their sweet spot in ZZZ. Genshin was great at the start, but it felt like they were throwing things at the wall to see if it would stick. Once their fan base started to get frustrated with the things they were throwing at the wall, they released Star Rails as a sort of, I'm sorry, please don't leave. Like, here's a game where we learn from our mistakes in Genshin and made it better. Then, after gaining feedback from that, they took all the good things from it and created Zenless and Zero. I know there are different teams for each game, but whoever they chose or hired to run ZZZ, just please continue what you're doing. Like, you're doing a really great job. If you made it this far, psych, you just clicked on a video where I basically gush over ZZZ. So that's it. What are your thoughts on Hoyo versus Evolution? Let me know. I want to hear them. Let's talk about it down in the comments. Consider leaving a like, maybe. Also, I recently made a bsky account because I've always been curious to see what's going on over there. I have Twitter, but I might revive it someday. To be honest, I only use it these days for, fan arts and stuff like that, so probably not. I'd rather you follow my bsky because I'll be active there from now on. I got a few video ideas like this one in the near future, so if you're interested in seeing those, maybe subscribe to the channel so you can get the notification when it comes out. I don't know when, but I'll try.